Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button to keep the station growing. There are rumors abound that the Minnesota Vikings are possibly in serious talks to trade for Matthew Stafford. And it would be a quarterback swap, of course. Sam Darnold for Matthew Stafford. And maybe sprinkling in a little bit of Cooper Kupp. When you hear these rumors and you hear about trades, you always think about what sort of assets are you giving up. And I believe that if you threw Cooper Kupp in there as well, you would have to give up some assets, even though he's not at the peak of his career anymore. He's had some injuries. You would still have to give up a little bit more. But the quarterback for quarterback swap is intriguing. And before people jump all over me, because I've seen the Twitter threads and what people are saying, the Minnesota Vikings would never do that. Why would they do that? The Minnesota Vikings started the season off 5-0. Sam Darnold was NFC Player of the Month. Why would they trade? He's playing the best football of his career. Why would they trade? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. People aren't giving a lot of validity to the rumors. And I'm going to look at it from a different angle. I have no inside information. I don't have any sources. You know, people like to say, my sources tell me. I don't have any sources, but I've had the opportunity to be around sports a long time, and I've had the opportunity to rub elbows with some professional coaches, work in some professional organizations. So I kind of know how these things work. And here's what I'm about to tell you, is I believe that the conversation has happened. I believe that there has been dialogue from the Minnesota Vikings towards the Los Angeles Rams in terms of Sam Darnold. Got Sam Bradford on the brain and Matthew Stafford. I believe that there's been some dialogue there. Now, how serious the dialogue is, I don't know. My guess is that it's not very serious right now. But here's what I'm going to tell you. See, when you deal with coaches and you interview coaches, you watch their press conference, you're not going to get the 100% total candid coach that you would like to get. And some people will buy a lot of the stuff that the coaches will spew at these press conferences and when they get a microphone in front of their face. But for those of us that have been around sports a long time, coaches are never really going to let you in. GMs really aren't going to let you in. They're going to give you the information that they want to give you and do with it what you will. Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, they're never going to tell you that we're in dialogue with the Rams about Matthew Stafford. How would their locker room take that? How would Sam Darnold take that if the trade, let's say hypothetically, couldn't get completed? They're never going to put that out in public. But I believe that the dialogue has happened. See, what you have to understand is that I don't think anyone in the Minnesota Vikings organization really pictured a 5-0 start. Now, they may tell you differently in front of the camera, but when they're at home and they're away from the public and they're sitting back thinking about their team and looking at their personnel and the roster, and they're thinking about the year before the season started, and they're looking at that schedule, and they're seeing the Texans, and they're seeing the San Francisco 49ers, and they're seeing the Green Bay Packers. They're not thinking we're going to go 5-0. And so when that happens, they're a little surprised. And I'm telling you, they're never going to admit that. But they are a little surprised that things are working out as well as they are working out. Now, there's another thing that they got to consider because it's not just about the 5-0 record, it's about what it looks like. B-Flow's defense has been getting a lot of praise, a lot of flowers. You've guys seen it in the national media. I mean, you see B-Flow on TV just as much as you see KOC, and KOC's the head coach. B-Flow's getting his flowers. Sam Darnold, NFC Player of the Month. A more improved running game with Aaron Jones. And they're not even at full strength. You had Jordan Addison that was out for a while. TJ Hawkinson hasn't even played a down yet. Hopefully he'll come back Thursday. But everything is looking good, feeling good. This has the smell of a team that can make a playoff run, possibly the Super Bowl. Kwesi starting to feel it. KOC starting to feel it. B-Flow starting to feel it. And so when you start to feel these sort of feelings and you start to see your team gel, and you can see it in the locker room every day, and you can see it in practice every day, and you never thought in your wildest dreams that you would be in this situation and things would feel so good that you would have the opportunity to take your shot. Now, here comes the coaching analysis in there, because you have to go to practice every day. And the one thing as a coach that I know is true that fans never get a chance to see is coaches know their players. Like, I feel like I know my players that play for me better than anybody. I see them every day in practice. I know what their strengths are. I know what their weaknesses are. I know what they do really well in certain circumstances. I know what they don't do so well in other circumstances. And then you have to build your philosophy and your playbook and your schemes around all of that stuff. Now, as well as Sam Darnold has played over the last month again, he was NFC Player of the Month. There are some things that KOC sees every day where he's like, well, that's not quite right. Here are some weaknesses. I really don't like this. There's a reason why Sam Darnold has been traded to multiple teams and really has not hit his peak. There are things that he does not do well. And so KOC has to try to hide his deficiencies. And so this is under the umbrella of the Vikings possibly having the shot to win a championship. Now, keep in mind, the NFC is not as strong as it used to be. The task is not that daunting. You got a depleted San Francisco 49ers team. You got a Green Bay Packers team that you just beat. You got a Detroit Lions team that you had the game. They beat you on the last-second field goal. Who should the Vikings really fear out there? There's really nobody to fear. You've just played arguably the best team in the NFC, and you should have won the game, had an opportunity to win the game, but you came up short. Who is there left to fear? So when you get to this point as a franchise, as an organization, and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, you can see the finish line. As the Minnesota Vikings brass get together every day and they meet, it's apparent, and it has to be a topic of conversation as the trade deadline looms. Do we take our shot? And if you agree that you should take your shot, what type of shot are you taking? Is it Dexter Lawrence? Think about what I'm saying before you dismiss that these are just trade rumors. Matthew Stafford has a ring. He has a ring with KOC as his offensive coordinator for the Rams. KOC knows him better than anybody. It's a perfect fit. Matthew Stafford knows the Minnesota Vikings playbook. The verbiage from McVay to KOC is the same. the transition would almost be seamless. The only thing he would have to do is build chemistry with different personnel, hypothetically, if this trade went through. Sam Darnold, on the other hand, would go to the Rams. Matthew Stafford has been rumored to maybe retire at the end of this year. So the cut would be clean for J.J. McCarthy to be able to come in next year and be quarterback. Sam Darnold is looking for an extension. He's played well under this system in this playbook. He's got a resume to prove it over the last month. If he goes to Los Angeles, the verbiage and the playbook is basically the same. He has shown that he can succeed under this scheme. He answers a lot of questions for the Rams. After Matthew Stafford retires, what's the plan at quarterback for the Rams? If Sam Darnold came in, question would be answered. Because I guarantee you this, after this season, whether the Vikings bring him back or not, he is going to be a sought-after free agent. So now he gets a chance to play 75% of his season with the Los Angeles Rams and showcase his talents, get ingratiated to their family, their philosophy, and sign an extension. While the Minnesota Vikings possibly, if the trade hypothetically were to go through, they get themselves a quarterback that's a veteran, that's been there, done that knows the NFC North when he played with the Detroit Lions, that has a Super Bowl ring, that knows the playbook, that for a half a year rental gives you your shot. See, it's about taking that shot. And this is why I don't just dismiss the rumors. I give it a little bit of validation. I just don't dismiss, because I know Kwesi and B-Flow and KOC, they're thinking about we're 5-1. We've got a chance, fellas. And the NFC conference is not that strong. The Philadelphia Eagles have fallen off. The San Francisco 49ers, they just lost Brandon Ayuk, arguably their first or second wide receiver, depending on which side of the fence you fall on. They're depleted. You just beat the Green Bay Packers, and again, the Lions barely beat you. The trade deadline is looming, and it's also important for the Minnesota Vikings, if they think they have a shot to make a run at this thing, to take their shot. And that shot could come in a lot of different ways. It may be an interior defensive lineman. It may be a shutdown corner, and it may be a quarterback that has a Super Bowl ring, that is familiar with our head coach and the playbook and the division. Now, whether it's a good trade or not, man, I don't know. Matthew Stafford is 36 years old. He's long in the tooth. You know, he's had some injury issues, but I know he can sling the ball. And I know there isn't a defense that he hasn't seen. And I know he's not skittish. And I don't know if that equates to the Minnesota Vikings taking their shot. And I don't know if I would agree with the trade, but I would understand. I would understand if Kwesi and the fellas decided that Matthew Stafford, for 11 games would give us our best shot at the brass ring. And after the season is over, he would ride off into the sunset, not as a cap casualty, just ride off into the sunset and retire. And in comes J.J. McCarthy. See, I can't just dismiss it because it all fits so well. I think tomorrow night is big. I don't think the talks, because I believe there's been some dialogue, I don't believe the talks are serious as some people have reported, but I do think there has been talks. And tomorrow will kind of make the pendulum swing one or two ways. If the Vikings struggle offensively and has a dry spell, and Matthew Stafford has a good game, and the Rams somehow defeat our Minnesota Vikings, I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and things start to heat up. If Sam Darnold returns to the Sam Darnold that won NFC Player of the Month, I think that dampens the fires a little bit, and it makes the Minnesota Vikings brass go back to the table and say, hey, we can roll with Sam. We've got something in Sam. But if Sam struggles, keep in mind, KOC sees him in practice every day. He hasn't really played lights out like he did earlier in the year since the first half of the Green Bay Packers game. Everything after that has been mediocre to not so good. Just think about it. Don't dismiss it right away. It's not ridiculous. It fits too good. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's the right move, but it fits too good. And I've been around sports organizations long enough to know that when these things start to dribble out from different places, and I've heard it from different places, where there's smoke, there's fire, UP Nation. Where there's smoke, there's fire. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Continue to help the station grow. I love talking to UP Nation. We will make sure to see you when we see you. Keep your eyes on the trade deadline. I got a feeling something big is going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to be at the quarterback position, but I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to make a splash. Latrey, take us home.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm a man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?